Her apartment was a chic, ultra-modern unit in a newly renovated warehouse not far from the Florida State campus. She lived alone, at least most of the time, with Frankie, her obnoxious French bulldog. The dog was always waiting at the door, turning flips to urinate in the flower beds, regardless of the hour. Lacey let him outside for a pee, then poured a glass of wine, fell onto the sofa, and stared out the large plate glass window. It was early March, the days were getting longer but they were still too short. She had grown up in the Midwest and did not miss the cold dark winters with too much snow and too little sunshine. She loved the Panhandle with its mild winters, real seasons, and long warm spring days. In 2 weeks the clock would change, the days would lengthen, and the college town would get even livelier with backyard cookouts, pool parties, rooftop cocktails, and outdoor dining. And that was for the adults. The students would live in the sun, head for the beach, and work on their tans. 6 murders. After 12 years of investigating judges, Lacey considered herself immune from shock. She was also calloused and jaded enough to have serious doubts about Jerry's story, much the same way she doubted every complaint that landed on her desk. But Jerry Crosby wasn't lying. Her theories might be wrong, her hunches off base, her fears unfounded. But she believed that her father was murdered by a sitting judge. Lacey had left their meeting at the Ramada with nothing. The one file she opened had been left on the table for Jerry to deal with. Curiosity settled in. She checked her phone and saw 2 missed calls from Ali Pacheco, her boyfriend. He was out of town and she would chat with him later. She fetched her laptop and began searching. The 22nd Judicial District encompassed 3 counties in the far northwest corner of the state. Among the 400,000 or so people who lived in the 22nd were 41 circuit judges, elected by that same population. In her 12 years at BJC, Lacey could remember only 2 or 3 minor cases from the 22nd. Of the 41 judges, 15 had been elected in 2004, the year Jerry said her suspect took the bench. Of those 15, only 1 finished law school at the University of Miami. In less than 10 minutes, Lacey had the name of Ross Bannock. He was 49, a native of Pensacola, undergrad at the University of Florida, no mention of a wife or family. Scant bio on the Judicial District's website. His photo portrayed a rather handsome guy with dark eyes, strong chin, and lots of salt and pepper hair. Lacey found him quite attractive and wondered why he wasn't married. Maybe he was divorced. She dug some more without getting too deep and found little about Judge Bannock. Evidently, he had managed to avoid controversy during his 2.5 terms on the bench. She went to her BJC files and found no complaint filed against him. In Florida, lawyers were expected to submit an annual review of the judges they encountered, anonymously of course. For the past 5 years, Bannock had received a stellar A+ rating from the bar. The comments were glowing, prompt, punctual, prepared, courteous, professional, witty, compassionate, bright, and intimidating intellect. Only 2 other judges in the 22nd received such high marks. She kept digging and finally found some dirt. It was a newspaper article from the Pensacola Ledger, dated April 18, 2000. A local lawyer, Ross Bannock, age 35, was seeking his first political office and trying to unseat an old judge in the 22nd. Controversy arose when one of Bannock's clients, a real estate developer, proposed a water park on some prime property near a Pensacola beach. The park was strongly opposed by seemingly everyone, and in the midst of the lawsuits and related brouhaha, it was revealed that lawyer Bannock owned a 10% stake in the venture. The facts were not that clear, but it was alleged that he tried to hide his involvement. His opponent seized the moment and ran ads that proved fatal. The election returns, from a later edition of the paper, showed a landslide defeat for Bannock. Though it was impossible to determine with such scant evidence, it looked as though he had done nothing wrong. Nonetheless, he was beaten badly by the incumbent. Lacey dug some more and found the election coverage from 2004. There was a photo of the old judge, who appeared to be at least 90, and 2 stories about his declining health. Bannock ran a slick campaign and the controversy from 4 years earlier was apparently forgotten. He won his race by 1,000 votes. His opponent died 3 months later. Lacey realized she was hungry and pulled a leftover quiche out of the fridge. Allie had been gone for 3 nights and she had not been cooking. She poured more wine and sat at her kitchen table, pecking away. In 2008, Bannock was unopposed for re-election. Sitting circuit judges rarely faced serious opposition in Florida, or any other state for that matter, and he seemed to be set for a long career on the bench. Her phone pinged and she jumped. Lost in another world, she had even forgotten about the quiche. Caller unknown. Got his name yet? Jerry asked. Lacey smiled and replied, it wasn't difficult. Miami Law, elected in 2004 in the 22nd. That narrowed it down to 1. Nice looking guy, huh? Yes. Why is he not married? Don't get any ideas. I wasn't. He has a problem with women, part of his long history. Lacey took a deep breath. Okay. I don't suppose you've met him? Oh no. Wouldn't go near him. He has security cameras everywhere. His courtroom, office, home. That's weird. Weird doesn't touch it. Are you in the car? I'm driving to Pensacola, maybe on to Mobile. I don't suppose you could meet me tomorrow. Where? Pensacola. That's 3 hours from here. Tell me about it. And what would be the purpose of our meeting? I have only one purpose in life, Lacey, and you know what it is. I have a busy day. They're all busy, aren't they? Afraid so. Okay. Then please put me on the calendar and let me know when we can meet there. Sure. I'll take a look. There was a long gap in the conversation, so long that Lacey finally asked, are you there? Yes. Sorry. I tend to drift. Have you found much online? Some. Several stories about his elections, all from the Ledger. How about the one from 2000 about the land deal, in bed with the crooked developer, the one that cost him the election? Yes, I've read that one. I have all of them in a file, whenever you want to take it. Okay, we'll see. That reporter was a guy named Danny Cleveland, originally from up north somewhere. He spent about 6 years with the Ledger, then moved around some. The newspaper in Little Rock, Arkansas, was his last stop. Last stop, yes. They found him in his apartment. Asphyxiation. Same rope, same unusual knot. Sailors call it the double clove hitch, pretty rare. Another unsolved mystery, another very cold case. Lacey struggled to respond and noticed that her left hand was shaking. Are you still there? Jerry asked. I think so. When was? 2009. Not a trace of evidence left behind. Look, Lacey, we're talking too much on the phone. I prefer face to face. Let me know when we can meet again. She abruptly ended the call. Her romance with Ali Pacheco was now into its 3rd year and, in her opinion, was stalling. He was 38 years old and, though he denied it, even in therapy, he was still scarred from a terrible first marriage 11 years earlier. It had lasted 4 miserable months and, mercifully, ended without a pregnancy. The biggest obstacle to a more serious arrangement was a fact that was becoming more and more obvious. Both enjoyed the freedom of living alone. Since high school, Lacey had not lived with a man in the house and she wasn't keen on having one around. She had loved her father but remembered him as a domineering, chauvinistic sort who treated his wife like a maid. Her mother, always subservient, excused his behavior and whispered over and over, "It's just his generation." It was a lame excuse and one Lacey vowed to never accept. Ali was indeed different. He was kind, thoughtful, funny, and, for the most part, attentive to her. He was also an FBI special agent who these days was spending most of his time in South Florida chasing narco-traffickers. When things were slow, which was rare, he was assigned to counterterrorism. There was even talk of him being transferred. After 8 years as a special agent with no shortage of commendations, he was always on the block to be shipped out, at least, in Lacey's opinion. He kept a toothbrush and a shaving kit in her spare bathroom, along with some sweats and casual stuff in a closet, enough to sleep over whenever he wanted. She, on the other hand, maintained a presence in his small apartment 15 minutes away. Pajamas, old sneakers, older jeans, a toothbrush, and some fashion magazines on the coffee table. Neither was the jealous type, but each had quietly marked their territory in the other's place. Lacey would have been shocked to learn that Ali slept around. He just wasn't the type. Nor was she. Their challenge, with his travel and their demanding schedules, was keeping each other satisfied. It was taking more and more effort, and that was because, as a close girlfriend said, "You're approaching middle age." Lacey had been appalled at that term and for the next month chased Ali from her condo to his apartment and back, until both were exhausted and called time out. He checked in at 7:30 and they chatted for a moment. He was on surveillance, whatever that meant, and couldn't say much. She knew he was somewhere around Miami. They both said, "I love you," and rang off. As a seasoned agent whose career meant everything, Ali was the consummate professional, and as such said little about his work, to Lacey anyway. To those he hardly knew he would not even give the name of his employer. If pressed, his standard reply was, "Security." He pronounced the word with such authority that further questions were cut off. His friends were other agents. There were times, though, maybe after a drink or two, that he lowered his guard a bit and talked, in generic terms, about his work. It was often dangerous and he, like most agents, lived for the adrenaline rush. By comparison, her cases were the same mundane complaints about judges drinking too much, taking gifts from law firms, dragging their feet, showing partiality, and getting involved in local politics. 6 murders would certainly liven up her caseload. She sent an email to her boss with the message that she had decided to take a personal day tomorrow and would not be in the office. The handbook gave her 4 PDs a year, with no questions asked. She rarely took one, and even had 3 left over from the previous year. Lacey called Jerry and made arrangements to meet at 1 o'clock the next day in Pensacola.